to our next session. So get ready for more of a data deep dive with Sharon, Laurie, and Kai. We're going to be unpacking all of the insights from our latest Viva Engage benchmarking study. So I'll hand over to the team now.
Oh, thank you, Emily, and thank you so much, Kat. I love that case study. So I really recommend everyone download the benchmarking report and read the written version as well. But welcome everyone to our session, How to Get the Most from Viva Engage. So in this session, we're going to take a look at some of the key insights from our 2025-26 Viva Engage benchmarking report. And we're going to show you how you can use these insights to get your people engaged and really cement Viva Engage as a key enterprise communications channel. So over the past 5 years, we've seen a shift in the way Viva Engage is used. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, I'm sure you experienced this, people were flocking to Viva Engage to connect and communicate with colleagues. But in the 5 years since, we've seen an increase in Viva Engage being used as an official corporate communications channel. So we're going to dive into what that means for you and how you can take some simple actions to cement Viva Engage as your key enterprise comms channel. We're also going to address the issue of information and noise overload across Viva Engage and internal communications channels and give you access to a new free tool we reckon is going to be a game changer. So let's start by introducing you to my colleagues joining me in this session. So Dr. Lawrence Lockley is our Chief Scientist and the brains behind all the data in this report. And you met Kai Kerr earlier, who's our CEO. And I'm Sharon, I'm the Director of Communications at SWOOP, and the three of us are the authors of this report. So we'd really like to make this session interactive. So go ahead and ask any questions throughout the session in the Q&A and the chat, and we'll try our best to answer them as they come through. But we're also going to ask you a couple of questions along the way. So please join in the polls that'll be coming up soon. So in this year's report, we've analysed the real-life data from almost 17 million Viva Engage interactions, and that's from almost 3 million employees across 5,758 active Viva Engage communities and 73 organisations. So as I said, before we get into the data, I'm going to launch a poll to get an idea of how you use Viva Engage currently in your organisation. So Fran's going to launch that, and can you tell us how important is Viva Engage in your internal comms channel mix? And there's four, it's about to pop up, I'm sure. There's 4 things you can choose from. I can see Fran grinning. And this is just to get an idea of how you're currently using it. So, oh look, already most people say it's an essential part of our comms channel mix, which is fantastic. Yeah, we've got it, but no one uses it. Oh, a few people have just started. And okay, these are varying now. So we're pretty close between being an essential part of the comms channel mix and it's optional. So while those votes keep coming in, we'll go on to the next slide. And interestingly, we can tell you that Viva Engage is actually a key enterprise comms channel, and we have the data to prove it. So I'll hand over to Dr. Lockley right now to explain.
Well, thanks, Sharon. So we have been benchmarking Viva Engage, or when it was Yammer, for probably 11 years now, but life did get pretty interesting during COVID. So in essence, it was a forced channel on us when everyone went remote in 2020. We have a good 6 years data now since then. So there's some interesting patterns emerging. So the good parts are that, there are more people on the platform and active on the platform. Now you see a number there, 31.6. That doesn't sound a lot, but it is up from previous years. We do look at how many people read, which generally is in the 70 to 80%. So there's still a lot of scope for getting people more active on the platform beyond just reading. Some other interesting things we saw, which was good, was 15.3% of all posts had a mention in them. So this is something that we've been really promoting pretty much since the beginning, that, we want people to tag other people into the conversation. Now, I know sometimes it's tagging them in for your information and so forth, but nevertheless, it does get people sort of coming to the platform more, and that's what we're looking for. So, and that's been going up fairly consistently over the last 5 years. Now, the other measure, which is also interesting, is the average, what we call the multi-group participation score. Now, we used to call that our diversity score, but for obvious reasons, we renamed it, because what it's giving you is that if you participate in lots of communities, or more than one at least, you are experiencing a more diverse set of information, interactions and contacts and so forth. And that really plays to what we see is innovation and promoting innovation on the platform. So I think we can say with the next slide that it has been, obviously it became a very important channel at the beginning of COVID. It's still an important channel. But in the last year, we have seen an uptick, if you like, on the innovation front. And as I said, it's the more people experiencing multiple communities, but we also have a measure called the Curiosity Index, which is the proportion of posts that are posed as questions. So when you put those two together, we think they're very strong signals to innovation happening on the platform, which of course is important to many organisations.
Yeah. So Laurie, there's some really strong data there to show how important it is already. And in fact, some of those numbers pretty much match the poll that we just were launching, right? But these findings do cement Viva Engage as a key enterprise communications channel. But what we need to do is figure out how to capitalise on this data to improve engagement on Viva Engage. So I'm going to hand over to Kai, and he's going to tell you exactly how you can do that.
Yeah, well, so there's an obvious one. For those of you who said, we're not sure yet, we just started, well, absolutely start using Viva Engage, start today. It is probably the best platform in the Microsoft 365 suite for creating open, transparent communication. And I have a link there to a guide called The Role of Engage in Your Comm Strategy, because there are still some people that get confused about when to use Teams and when to use Engage and so forth. So that'll really help you set out. The common thread in that guide, which is based on a lot of case studies and interviews with the top performing organizations in our benchmarking reports, plus industry experts, was that we really need to draw on those superpowers that I mentioned about open, transparent conversations. So get the guide, make sure you're using for Viva Engage what is it best for. The next thing I've got there is about mentioning and asking questions. They are probably some of the most impactful things that you can do. So I've got a link. I think Fran's probably also putting the links in the chat as we talk. Mentioning and asking questions are really powerful. I wrote a blog post that's the one about asking questions with UK-based comms expert Howard Kreis, that some of you might know. He was the co-author of leading the listening organization. And there's some really nice examples, particular one in there about how you can really ask questions for impact. So have a look at that. I'd also suggest that you start with coaching senior leaders, run programs on how to add mention and how to ask questions. If, as Laurie was saying, you just tag people as thank you very much, Laurie or Sharon, for doing this, that is not as impactful as getting them involved through a question as well, and say, hey Sharon, what did you think about that? The last bit is to promote communities, for instance, on your intranet. Profile people, profile the conversations. If you can't find anything of interest to promote, well, then start some campaigns on Viva Engage. The one that Kat was showing about mental health is also an example of a campaign, and you can see how to do that really well. We've also seen examples of other campaigns around, for instance, it could be cybersecurity, or it could be AI, health and safety, or whatever is really important to your organization. So while we are talking about Viva Engage being the use of it is going up, as Laurie was saying, we're now at more than 30% of people that are actively using it, which is actually really, really high. We do have some challenges as well, so it's not all we like to say it's good news, but there are some ways in which Engage is the use of it that's shifting a bit that we're a little bit worried about. And in the benchmarking report that we just published here earlier, I guess it was probably not a month ago or something like that, was a dance floor analogy. The dance floor analogies we're saying is that we have more people on the dance floor, but they are dancing less. And I guess what we'd like to see, to build on that analogy, is we'd love to see more couples doing the cha-cha, and then maybe just a little bit less focus on the break dancers that are performing solo in front of the crowd. I hope the analogy works. All right. So I'm going to ask Laurie to maybe dive into that, the cha-cha and the break dance numbers a little bit. Like, what is that shift we are starting to see? Because we have seen that, I guess, over the last 5 years, really since the height of the pandemic. So back to you, Laurie.
Yeah, thanks, Kai. So yeah, the data doesn't lie. I mean, clearly, there are a lot more people jumping up and down, reacting, and so forth. So it has been continuously going up. On the downside, also, the number of written replies to posts has been going down consistently. So in fact, we're having less conversations, and in fact, even the number of posts that the average post per person has really been dropping, from last year to this year and so forth. So there's some disturbing trends, I would say, here, that we're starting to see, if you like, more people on the dance floor, if you like, and maybe acknowledging each other. But in fact, in terms of meaningful interaction, I think that the trend has been downwards over the last 5 years. So I think that is a little bit concerning. I think the other thing is that we've been using these personas really since the beginning of SWOOP. These were built in at the start, and one of the personas we had was the broadcaster personas. So that's the people that put information out there, really don't get a lot of response, and we have seen that persona starting to creep up. That's a bit annoying, I guess. The engager persona, which is our aspirational persona, these are people that can balance the giving and receiving in the network. So people that will respond, but they'll also provide post and reply and so forth. These people are the ones that connect people in the network. We've seen that consistently drop over the last 5 years. And its companion measure, the two-way relationship score, that's also dropped alongside with it. So this is a bit disturbing for people like us that really value people-to-people engagement. It's something that I think we can turn around. This data is really the helicopter view, right? So it sort of might not look good if you're looking at from above, but Sharon will talk a little bit about some of the communities that we dived into, and we know there is good examples out there. So despite the fact that at the helicopter level we're seeing maybe shallower conversations, we're seeing, say, maybe a little bit more broadcasting that we've seen in the past, and maybe some risk to this people-on-people engagement dropping. What we do know is that there is a good proportion of communities that we've identified out there that are doing the right thing. You've heard already from Medibank about some of theirs. So I think we can look to the future with some optimism, but we do have to do stuff. We do have to do stuff to turn these trends around.
Laurie, you may not have seen it, but Kevin's just posted a link in the chat. And Kevin, I've only just read the headline. I haven't read the whole article, but I think it is going to reflect exactly what we're finding, that these behaviours aren't just unique to Viva Engage. It's actually happening across all social media platforms, whether they're external or enterprise social networks. So I'd just love everyone to think about whether you are actually seeing the same trend on other social platforms. Are there less conversations and more reactions? So that leads us to our next poll. Just if you can think if these behaviours are unique to Viva Engage, or if you're seeing them, the same sorts of trends across all social media platforms, both enterprise and personal. So I'm going to click on there and we can get the results. Yeah, see everyone's, there you go, Kevin. I think that was a very apt link to share. I'll have to read that one. So yeah, it seems to be that it's not unique to Viva Engage, but Kai has some actions that are sure to get some more in-depth conversations happening across your Viva Engage communities. So over to you, Kai.
Yes, thank you very much. We always like to pair these, I guess, these insights with some practical action. So I've got some there for you to consider. I mentioned before the superpowers you need to draw on in Viva Engage. We've actually published 7 Viva Engage success guide, and they range everything from building the business case to positioning Engage in the channel mix. We have about nurturing communities, getting leaders and everyone else on board. And also the most recent guide we published is on managing information overload with Viva Engage. And I'll come a little bit back to that shortly about information overload. Now, I'd also say, I think we have a lot of internal communicators on the call. Can you just give me like a reaction if you are in internal communications? And just give a little wave or something. Yeah, this kind of, okay. So this is especially for you, okay? Resist any urge you may have to think of Engage as just another channel in the mix. It is not. Like the focus on two-way conversations, two-way relationships really does make it very unique. So like I know you're here today because you don't think like that. You know how important it is in the channel mix and you know the difference, but you might have colleagues who are not here today who's thinking, all right, well, it doesn't matter. Is it email? Is it Engage? Doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. It's not. The last bit is to learn from the best. You have them here doing the sessions today. You have them mentioned in our benchmarking reports. They are fantastic storytellers, and we Sharon, who's one of our key author of all the case studies, really try to draw out all those particular practical things you can do to tell these fantastic stories that really inspire us all. And that brings up me to the next point, which is really about like how do we know whether people are dancing on our dance floor? You know, how well are we actually doing? And we have a special guide that we call goals to aim for when using Viva Engage, because we know many of you, especially all those of you that are starting out, might be new to Viva Engage, and we're like, what does good actually look like? So have a look at that one. It introduces benchmarks. It shows average scores, realistic but ambitious goals to aim for, such as, for instance, how many of these two-way relationships should we have? Lloyd talked about the importance of, if we see this increase in the use of Engage for broadcasting, well, how do we then counter that with having more two-way relationships? That's the dancing part of the dance floor analogy. That's the two-way relationships. And the interactive users is more focusing on, well, how many people are kind of like on the floor versus how many of them are just watching other people dancing. So I hope the analogy works for you. The goals we are setting are based on what the top 20% of the high-performing organizations are achieving. That's why I said it's ambitious yet realistic. And I think that's a perfect segue back to you, Sharon, to talk to some of those amazing high performers and what they are doing to buck the trend and use Viva Engage and get the most out of its superpowers.
Oh, thanks, Kai. Yes, so definitely one of the best things about our annual benchmarking is identifying the world's top performing Viva Engage enterprise networks and the top performing communities. So these are our 2025-26 Viva Engage champions on screen now. So in #1 position globally, as we heard earlier, for the top performing network is Australian health insurer Medibank. And this is the second year in a row Medibank's taken out the top spot. And as we said, there's a great case study in the benchmarking report from Medibank. #2 globally is Westpac New Zealand. Fiona, if you are on this call, congratulations to you and all the team. #3 globally was British telecommunications company Aquiva. And two of the top 3 organisations globally were based in our APAC region. And coming in at #3 for APAC is ANZ. So congratulations to all our winners. So as well as ranking the top performing Viva Engage enterprises, we also did a deep dive analysis into 5,758 active Viva Engage communities across the 73 organisations we benchmarked. So coming in at #1 globally is another APAC customer, and it's the New South Wales Department of Customer Service. So you might be surprised when you learn this community is actually about insurance and government regulation, which to me sounds a little bit dry, but I'll show you how it checks all the boxes for an engaged, active and thriving community. So when we identify the top performing communities in our benchmarking, we only have the ID number of the community, and we contacted Yay at the Department of Customer Service. And Yay, I think you might be on this call. If you are, please feel free to jump in and share this story yourself. But we asked Yay to identify this community, and she looked it up, and she told us once she had a good look at it that she wasn't at all surprised it was ranked #1. So the community ticks all the right boxes. You know, it's led by an engaging, Yay, it's led by an engaging, authentic chief executive, and it's supported by a strong leadership team. People are asking questions and receiving answers. It's a safe space for people to share their ideas and opinions. There's a healthy mix of posts praising and recognising colleagues and mentioning them, and lots of learning and job development opportunities are shared in the community. Most of the posts have images or videos or attachments, and they use data from SWOOP Analytics to monitor engagement and ensure messaging is reaching the right people. So the #1 community, as I said, it's the New South Wales Government Insurance Regulator, and it's called the State Insurance Regulatory Authority, or CIRA. So in the next slide, there's an example of just some of the CEO's really authentic posts. So that first one on the left, it's a selfie she took during a work from home day, and you can see she's got like business wear on top and active wear below. And in the post, she asks others to share their work from home secrets in the comments. And on the right-hand side is a photo she took from the train window on a work trip from Gosford back to Sydney. So they're both really simple posts, but they're so authentic and they engage people. If we move on to the next one, it was really obvious in this community, there was this lovely mix of the different types of posts, and these are some examples of Viva Engage posts highlighting the work of colleagues and recognising people. So on the left, there was one about some safe work principles and calling out great work by that person, and then on the right, it's an example of a CIRA team member sharing a story of a colleague demonstrating some CIRA principles about engaging with the community. And then on the next slide, we've got some posts. It's someone encouraging colleagues to donate blood during National Blood Donor Week. And you can also see it's probably a little small there, but some of the really supportive replies. And on the right, there's an example of a CIRA team member sharing a secondment opportunity on Viva Engage. So just a really lovely mix. And then in the next slide, you'll see, I know it's a little bit blurry, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to share it with you to show you the consistency of the most engaging posts across this community. So this is a screenshot of a SWOOP Analytics report for the most engaging posts, and it is hard to see those numbers, but there's no real standout posts in this community. You know, every post has similar strong engagement. So it's just a reflection of this very engaged community. Of customer service is an example of how to do it right and create that perfect mix of content that people engage with. But what we also heard in our interviews and from listening to you is that people are feeling overwhelmed with communications, and that's leading to information overload. So we decided to address this head on, and we wrote a new Viva Engage success guide on how to deal with information overload. And as we were writing this guide, Kai came up with an idea we think is going to be a game changer for anyone involved in internal comms. So I'll hand over to you, Kai, to reveal all.
I think you might have set the expectations a little bit too high, yeah, with game changer. But let's see. One of the things we realized, I guess, was that Viva Engage could be both a solution to information overload by using it better as a channel for what it's really good for. You've all seen that where there's countless email newsletters going out and so forth, and be smarter using it in Viva Engage. But Viva Engage can also, I like to use the term, you can, yeah, have you heard that? You can hug a teddy bear to death. So if you love it too much, then you can squeeze it. And anyway, that we have also heard that there's some organizations that find that Viva Engage can also be really noisy. So balancing that with governance, it's really, really important. So those two things we cover in the guide, which I'm going to link to in a moment. But as we were thinking about this, we realized that how do we actually understand whether there's a risk of us being suffering from information overload? And that prompted us to develop this information overload calculator. And I'm going to share with you, you're going to have access to it, by the way. It's absolutely free. I'm going to share with you an example of like how that works, so you can try it out. Not during the session today, but later on this week. So you go to the SWOOP website, you click on resources, you go to the information overload calculator. Just so you know, anything you type into the calculator is totally anonymous. It's not recorded unless you click to share a link with someone. Then we store the calculation, but we don't know who did the calculation. And when you fill in this form, this is really just for us to see who's using the calculator, but we don't the data is not connected at the back end. So when you go into the calculator, it's really just really simple, 3 really simple steps. And all in the most simplest way, all we are doing is trying to find out how much are we pushing out from an internal commerce perspective. And then we look at how much time do we think people have to consume this. If we send out more than people have time to consume, well, it's probably information overload. So that's what we want to have a look at. So that's the simplest form. Here's the flow of it. There's a company profile section, and I'm just going to click on load sample data so we have something to look at together. But basically all you do is you put in how many employees you are, how many managers there are, because they're often used for cascading information. And then you put in what communication channels you have, and you can remove them if you don't use them, and you can add some if they're not listed here. Once you've done that, then that's the bit where everyone puts in, so how much are we actually sending out? And I'm just going to again click on load sample data. So it's really simple here. It's pre-populated. You can just edit that, or you can start from afresh. It's up to you. But you put in how many things you are putting out, like in this case, internal news stories. Then is it reaching everyone or a smaller proportion? How often do you push it out? And then what channels are you using? You can just add or remove or anything you like. Then whether it's done by internal comms or someone else, and then that important bit about how long time do we think it's going to take. So you do that for all of them. And I was actually talking to a customer the other day, so I'm just going to put this. They were actually putting out 10 news items on their intranet a week, so I'm just going to change this just to reflect that. And then what we do, we work with the time assumptions, right? This is a bit where we're saying how much time do we think people have to consume all the news and things that we are pushing out. And again, I'm putting in some sample content here, and I'm just going to say, well, we think we have 15 minutes a week. We've heard people saying 0, and someone's saying an hour. So you sort of have a best get at how much time you think people realistically have. If you've got no idea, then talk to your colleagues about it. And then all you do, you click on calculate the information overload. It takes about a second or so. And then you can see in this example here, where we're putting out like 10 news items plus HR updates and so forth, we actually ending up putting out more content than people can really read with the allocated time budget. So I think that's really a strong conversation starter. And the other part of it is that one thing is we look at the time, but we also try and assign monetary value, because, like money talks. So what's especially here is that we actually look at how the reading time of the audience. And Laurie was using an example of, if you put an ad on the TV, how much are you prepared to pay for that? And it's a bit the same here. We're actually saying that if you're pushing out that amount of content, you expect it takes that long time to read, that actually equates in this example here to $61 million. And I think what's really important here is the role that internal comms play in coordinating the flow of communication, vetting quality, scheduling messages so they don't collide, align updates to outcomes, and then track whether these land. And if you don't do that, if we don't have you guys on the call here today paying attention to that, then that, in this case, $61 million or whatever the number is you'll arrive at, that amount of money is actually at risk. And here at SWOOP, our role in all this is really just to be kind of like the radar that tracks internal comms. So if you think of yourselves as air traffic control, we're sort of more like the the radar that'll tell you when the flights are coming in, and you can prevent them from stop colliding and landing all at the same time.
We can't leave without getting you to download your own copy of our benchmarking report. And we also have, actually, Fran, have you got the link? You could just share that. We've got a whole success guide on the information overload calculator, which goes into detail, a lot more detail about dealing with information overload and some of the more research that Laurie's done with it on Viva Engage. And if you need help setting goals and measuring the impact of your communications efforts, we're here to help. So please message Emily or Fran in the chat and they'll get in touch and set up a meeting with you straight away. Thank you, everybody. So definitely try that information overload calculator. We'd love you to download that success guide about information and noise overload, and please download the benchmarking report.